Very good morning, it's Penuel, the Black Pen. I wanted to make a video in response to the interview I did with DJ Sbu, of course, on the virtual Mkhukhu, and more importantly with our guest, Duduzane Zuma. Just so that the honeys, they know what's happening. Oh my gosh, Penel's fresh lips. LL Cool J, LL Cool P, Penuel, the Black Pen. Anyways, so first and foremost, I'd like to thank all of you for, again, the constant support and more especially for watching that interview on the virtual Mkhukhu with myself and DJ Sbu. It truly means a lot to me. I never take any single view for granted. I don't take any single comment for granted. So thank you for that. It means a lot to me. More importantly, because it's very sad that like positive comments almost never get feedback. It's like, oh, people liked it. Thanks. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You guys don't get like a lot of kudos, but I want to thank everyone who gave like a positive comment. Really enjoyed the interview, showed a different side of Duduzane. We need more young leaders, all those comments. I read those comments and I take those in. So if we have 100 comments, and 5 of them are negative and 95 are good, I focus on the 95. But of course, we also need to respond to the 5 negative comments. So I just want to thank all of you for the positive comments, for showing support, and especially for those with constructive criticism. It means a lot, not just for me, but for Justice, the guy who does our production. If you think the sound is not great, if you think the camera angles could be better, this is how we improve, by positive, constructive feedback and criticism. Just want to send a shout out to Sizwe. I want to send a shout out to Nkateko. They were the people that actually made the interview happen. And then a shout out to my sister Penrose, because she connected me with Sizwe. Sizwe connected me to Nkateko, and then we managed to get Duduzane. So I'll start here. Number one, I'm a huge fan of Duduzane Zuma. I've been studying his moves for many years, like maybe some of you. There was the unfortunate story of culpable homicide where I think with his Porsche at the time, someone died from his driving. He went through the court cases, he was acquitted. We can argue, I don't really know the merits of the case. We can argue whether the victims of the family got a fair trial or not. It was like a joop incident. Someone died because he was driving, culpable homicide. He went through the court cases, he was acquitted of that. Of course, then there was the association with the Guptas, of course, which has now become infamous. You know what I mean? His bank accounts were frozen with Duduzane. To this day, he still can't open a bank account in this country. He's been blacklisted by our banks, which it seems are biased and they choose favor. For example, the bank accounts of Cyril Ramaphosa have not been frozen with this Pala scandal. If you look at Marcus Jooste with Steinhoff, his bank accounts were not frozen. If you look at some of the biggest scandals that have happened in this country, from a finance perspective, even from a political perspective, it seems like the banks are biased in whose accounts get frozen. We know Iqbal survey of Segunjalo and independent media's accounts seem to be getting frozen now, just as the Guptas were back in the days. So he can't open a bank account in this country. He's been blacklisted by our financial services and banking sector. It's quite sad, but the story is out there. And then obviously the association with his father. Umshini wami weba haulethu umshini wami haulethu umshini wami umshini wami. Anyways, so obviously with his dad, of which I'm a huge fan of, Umsholozi, Jacob Zuma, the ex-president. And then there's that association, of course, with Duduzane. So I just needed to give that context. There were a lot of people that weren't happy with the interview, the discussion and how it went. And I just need to highlight a few things, not just for them, but for everyone who watches the virtual Mkhukhu. Number one, podcasts have got different cultures. What does that mean? It means we can have a podcast that is just education, like the virtual Mkhukhu has become now. We invite people over so that we can learn, as myself and DJ Sbu, and also so that our audience, the virtual squatters, can learn. It's not a platform for debate. There are platforms that invite you for critical debate. We're inviting you on so that we can debate. We heard, let's say, AfriForum is saying they want to reinstate the old apartheid flag. Let's invite you on to debate. This is a debate platform where we will tell you why we feel you're wrong, why people are angry, etc. Or an educational channel where we're saying, listen, this is what happened. Please tell us your views on what you think about that. There are spaces which are for gossip, of course. I know sometimes like MacGyver and Saul do gossip and they speak about sex, and it upsets a lot of people, of course, especially because they have such a huge reach. There are platforms that are themed. So maybe it's just a money podcast. Maybe it's just a medical or health podcast. Maybe it's a podcast just on cars. So every podcast has got its own culture. And when I joined DJ Sbo on the Hustler's Corner and then we created the virtual Mkhukhu, I came with my own personality and my own flavor, which you guys know. Like I'm here. I go in hard. I speak aggressively about the ANC government. I've slashed Cyril Ramaphosa. I've tried to explain how I view certain things. And people know that I can take it there. I can bring the heat and I can go fucking hard and I can debate and I can even argue. People know that about me. And over time, I had to learn that the virtual Mkhukhu has got its own culture and I had to respect it. You know, it's also part of the reason why it's important for me to, number one, have my own channel like here where I get to just say my thoughts. And number two, so that I can have my own podcast with just me, where I can create my own culture, where I can then comfortably go in as hard as I want on there, because it is now no longer a educational platform. It may have educational elements, but it is a platform for me to have my type of engagements fully. We saw with DJ Sbo apologizing on behalf of the Hustler's Corner when the JJ Tabane interview trended and Trevor Manuel ended up suing JJ Tabane and then the Hustler's Corner, which I'd like to hope that is revoked now. DJ Sbo is a huge brand, local brand, continental and even global brand. More fire, massive metro. He's working with Ekasi Noble Properties. He's working with Great Jabesi at cryptocurrencies, and he's constantly hustling and pushing. So for him, that is more important, to look after his brand and to effect change and to make money and to give back. Even Slef, the Sbusiso Liope, I don't know if it's Educational or Empowerment Foundation, is Slef, his NPO, his charity, you know, and then Leadership 2020, the homegrown farm, like Sbu does a lot. So he had to make sure that he protects that. And understandably, people attacked him. Sbu is securing the bag, what, selling out. It's fine, guys. You're entitled to your opinions. You know, we appreciate it and we understand. But it was important for him to do that for the platform. I wasn't going to apologize. Number one, because I don't have money, even if Trevor Manuel sued me. Number two, because just for my brand, I wouldn't want to apologize for my brand. DJ Sbo could comfortably say, I'm apologizing for myself as DJ Sbo, for the Hustler's Corner, for the virtual Mkhukhu. But Penwell, the Black Pen, God Penwell, does not want to apologize, and maybe he can give his views as well. And I would have done that just as JJ Tabane did not apologize for himself and his going to court, and people have helped fundraise for him because of whatever they believe in. That's for them. So that's fundamentally important, understanding the culture of a space. I had never met with Duduzane. I'm not sure if DJ Sbo had met with Duduzane. We only had 1 hour. The other problem is time constraints. We only had 1 hour to do an interview because Duduzane was in Gauteng to come and do work on the ground, campaigning, meeting certain kids at schools, meeting other stakeholders, etc. You know, because as part of his presidential campaign, and also just putting his hand up to lead. So we didn't have much time. There's a book, I think it's by Andrew Carnegie. I don't think it's Dale Carnegie. Andrew or Dale Carnegie. One of them is a super billionaire. The other one is an author. Wrote a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And once you understand the psychology of human beings and how human beings think, you realize what it's going to take for you to earn a license to say and do certain things that other people do not have the license to say and do. Dave Chappelle today has a license to almost say anything that he wants because he's earned it. People love him, people trust him, people know that he keeps it real. Joe Rogan, similar. You know, he's earned it. It didn't just happen overnight. So for example, you wanted Duduzane Zuma to be comfortable enough to unpack his relationship with the Guptas, the business that they did, anything that he feels that maybe they did wrong, anything that he feels maybe they did right. You want to get to a comfortable point where he can even speak about his dad, you know, and understanding you guys are fathers. And there are things that your fathers or your mothers have done that people may not like. You know, you don't like the idea of having to carry that on your shoulders. My father used to beat my mother, and he used to beat some of his girlfriends. Now, if my father had become famous, here I am walking around. Ah, you're the son of the wife beater. You know, my father used to sell and transport illegal diesel. You know, he'd buy diesels on the sly. And that was a crime. You know, he used to do what's called poaching on private land. Obviously, it's a controversial topic now because white people took the land, whatever. They did it as a sport and a hobby. And because black people, black Africans don't have land, the only place my father and his friends could go hunt, hike, go with their dogs to catch rabbits was on private land. His dogs would get killed. They'd be in the Newcastle Advertiser in the local paper in Newcastle. He'd be arrested. So my father had all these dark aspects of him. And it may explain why I understand Jacob Zuma. It may explain why I even understand the stance of Duduzane Zuma. You've got this father figure that is not liked by society and doesn't fit a particular narrative. And because of that, now you have to carry that. Did this and that. And now I have to carry that. And it becomes worse if I do business with people that are friends of my father, like the Guptas, maybe Vivian Reddy, maybe Senegal, Charles Senegal, you know, or Pongolo, etc., etc. So you become guilty by association. Young chap, ambitious like the rest of us, wants to make money. Here's a family that is willing to open their hands and say, we're willing to work with you. You may not have all these great business credentials, but we see potential in you, and obviously we like your dad. Come and work with us. And Duduzane took that and he ran with it. He sat on the boards with the Guptas. He learned about business. He traveled the world. He tried to create relationships. And of course, if my dad is the president, my life is not going to be like yours. I'm going to be able to gain access to certain people that you can't gain access to. I mean, if my dad was a pastor, a famous pastor in a church somewhere, it becomes easier for me to network. If my mom is Felicia Mabuza, Sattel, or Oprah Winfrey, it becomes easier for me to network. If, like Andile Ramaphosa, your dad is still Ramaphosa, of course, Gavin Watson and Angelo Agrizzi will want to do business with you because of your dad. That's kind of how the real world works. Connection. It's the reason why when your mom is working at a function, you're the one that gets a plate first. And you get like big pieces of meat. And you're going to make sure that you told them a cake and a drink. Connection. There's a joke that says, even to get into heaven, you need a connection because you first have to acknowledge Jesus Christ so that he can put in a good word with his dad so that you can get into heaven. Connection is just how it works. It's a matter of how do you use that connection, how many people are kept out unfairly, and are you corrupt, etc. We had an hour. I wanted to win over Duduzane, and he actually won me over as well. I understand. Politicians, powerful people, they have swagger, they have a way of speaking. And Duduzane sounds like he's been media trained, just like Julius Malema. They speak well, they know how to handle tough questions, etc., etc., etc. But with that being said, in the time I spent with him, I realized that he's a gent. He's just a gent. He loves hip-hop as well. He just happened to be in a certain family with a certain father. And he, like the rest of us, is just trying to do good in the world and trying to make money and make a difference. You know, so we need to remember that when we attack these people, they're human, of course. I had issues with Jacob Zuma and Nkandla. I wanted him to pay back the money, and I believe he got a slap on the wrist. Thuli Madonsela, I think, made him pay 7 million or 5 million out of the over 240 million rand. That's peanuts. And he went to get a loan from VPS. You've got someone like Marcus Jooste, who I think was fined 20 million rand after losing hundreds of billions with Steinhoff. Slap on the wrist. I'm not happy with that. I may not be happy with some of the associations Jacob Zuma had. I may not be happy with some of the policies he had. But the bottom line is I loved him as a father. I was happy that he was a proud polygamist as an African man. Brilliant singer, brilliant dancer. He made us feel happy. And he seemed to have a vision and an ideology to uplift the black masses. And true to speak, I've met a lot of young and old black people who benefited a lot under the Zuma administration. Tenders, business deals, mining, etc. I'm just very sad that they haven't taken that money and built. They haven't taken that money and carried on. A lot of them went and they splurged that money going to Dubai, buying an expensive alcohol, expensive cars, etc. It became a fuck up. It's almost like Jacob Zuma empowered the wrong people. In the same way, it seems like Robert Mugabe empowered the wrong people in Zim because some of the people that he gave some of the more lucrative farms to seem to just fuck them up. If you'd given them to the right people, those people would have put in the work and it would be a great story to tell. One of my mentors, Kulufelo Maponya, who's received money from the PIC through the ex-CEO Dan Machila, is seen as a Zuma apologist. Iqbal Survey of independent media and Segunjalo is seen as a Zuma apologist. Gayton McKenzie was seen as a Zuma apologist. And so many other people who they can tell you today that because of the push Zuma made, we've got guys like Hlaudi Mutswaneng at the SAPC. Obviously, controversially, we had Duduzane at SAA, who exposed that only 3% of the suppliers, they are black. You know, we saw Brian Molife, Matsila Koko at ESCOM, what happened. Like, there was something that was happening. And we in effect, saw the incumbents, the people that were in charge of the economy getting angry, using the media to fight. We saw them. And I'm not saying the incumbents are wrong or right, or Jacob Zuma and his crew are wrong or right, but it's two giants that are fighting at each other looking for power. And the masses at the bottom seem to constantly be the ones that are losing. I love Jacob Zuma as a man, great leader. I got to learn from him, seeing what it takes to stand up against adversity, getting attacked in parliament, getting dragged by the media, being called names. And he stood up and he stood firm. And he was able to still laugh and sing and joke. I can learn from that, and I hope you can learn from that. We can then debate his politics. Definitely. We can debate Duduzane Zuma's moves. Definitely. But I have to explain that I admire these people, and I cannot now put that aside and pretend like I don't, number one. Number two, there's a lot of very difficult questions I wanted to ask with Duduzane. And in the interest of time, we couldn't. I think we built a great relationship. I've got his number now. I'm hoping to build a stronger relationship with him so that, like I did with Nhlanhla Lux, like I'm hopefully doing with Herman Mashaba, like I'm doing with the guys at AfriForum, like I'm doing with Robert Hersoff, I'm trying to bring these people closer to be in my circle because I know they have influence. I know they have agendas, of course. I know they have circles to appease, of course. But the bottom line is some of them genuinely want to serve. Some of them genuinely want to uplift this country. Some of them genuinely want to make a difference. And even if they don't, if I can infiltrate their minds and get them to see what work needs to be done, what helps needs to happen for the people on the ground, I think we can all win. And you may not like how I move about it. It's fine. I never got to ask all of my questions because of time. I had difficult questions. There have been rumors about Duduzane's twin sister, Duduzile, having a relationship with Julius Malema and how it went sour. I wouldn't have expected him to answer. He could have been like, well, there's something for my sister to say. Don't really get involved. But I would have asked him that nonetheless. Not an easy question. I wanted him to answer, does South Africa need the Guptas to come back? How many jobs did the Guptas create? How much tax did they pay? How many black people did they uplift? We know they created ANN7 and the New Age newspaper, and they handed it over to Mzwanele Manyi. Of course, he's the spokesperson of the Jacob Zuma Foundation. He was a Zuma apologist, you know. But there was a black man. You guys want black people to run stuff? There was a black man that was doing something. We saw Matsila Koko, Brian Molife as black professionals, competent professionals that were putting in work, getting rid of load shedding, etc. We saw Hlaudi Mutswaneng, not speaking the greatest of English, but passionate about 90% local, making sure that local shows are put on. So, were the Guptas good for South Africa and for normal South Africans, or were they not? His opinion. He doesn't have bank accounts here, but does he have bank accounts overseas? Does that money ever come into the country? Those are some of the more juicier conversations we could have had, but we didn't have much time. And of course, we had to give him the platform to also just speak and be comfortable. And then as time goes on, as the relationship gets stronger, I can then start going in. Same with Rob Hersoff. A lot of people have dragged Rob, etc., called him a capturer or whatever. I have been trying to build a stronger relationship with Rob so that I can get the privilege and the license to ask him some of these harder questions without him getting angry and losing him and switching him off, and getting him to maybe begin understanding the psychology of the masses, black trauma, and how black people still by and large feel like white people have not apologized. They are not willing to play ball, and. That's how we build a nation. But for me, importantly, and I've said this before, it's us, me, you. What are we doing? Forget the politicians, forget the rich guys, what are we doing? Nhlanhla Lux was just a gent a year or so ago. He was just a guy. Today he's a somebody, he put his hand up. Herman Mashaba was just a businessman, black like me. He decided to put his hand up. Gayton McKenzie, ex-con, businessman. He put his hand up. What are you doing? There's, I don't know if it's Chris Papa, the white DA leader, Wazulu, who speaks fluent Zulu, doing work on the ground. What are you doing? Are you planting trees, fruit trees in your neighborhood? Are you setting up WhatsApp groups for your neighborhood so you guys can communicate effectively what are our ills and our issues as a neighborhood? Are you guys setting up stockfields and saying, listen, we need to set up a stockfield because we need to close potholes. We need to fund the local school. What are we doing? You know, I'm reaching out to AfriForum now. I had a conversation yesterday with one of the leaders there, Ernst van Sail. Young, passionate guy, wrote an amazing piece of finding a life around the ANC and how we must be the solution. He was saying, don't ask yourself, what can government do for us? Ask yourself, what is government doing that we can do for ourselves? AfriForum has got over 155 branches around the country. They are closing potholes. They are cutting grass. They have their own neighborhood watch. They are investing in local schools. They are educating people. They've built their own 300 million rand skills university for Afrikaans speaking people. They are putting in work. Just Afrikaans gents came together, of course, with their white privilege, solidarity, you know, trade union. What are your trade unions? NUMSA, NUM, KOSATU, SATU, NEHAU, what are they doing? Have they set up something like an AfriForum for black people, for black teachers, for black mine workers, for metal workers, for anyone, so that you guys can be the solution? That's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find the people that are passionate about building and serving and trying to get them to do more work, trying to get them to understand some of the cries from the other sides, and then trying to see how we can collaborate together to create a better South Africa with our own agendas. You want yourself and your family to be rich, I understand. But in doing that, are you bleeding and killing the people on the ground? Are you stealing too much? People will always steal, there'll always be corruption, but are you stealing too much? After you've stolen, now that you have this money, are you sending it out of the country or are you redirecting it? There have been rumors of Uys Magashule being corrupt, but a lot of the money that he's had is used for scholarships for kids to study locally and abroad. He's empowered other business people that may not have gotten a chance. Because sometimes you have to go and steal that money because you can't get it fairly and then give it to the people that actually deserve it. Those are the conversations we need to be having. But please understand, guys, the virtual Mkhukhu is an educational platform. It's a non-hostile platform so that anyone is free to come there and tell their story, even if we do not like it. As time goes on and as we earn the license to become a bit more controversial, to debate a bit more, it'll happen. Cyril Ramaphosa comes onto virtual Mkhukhu like I did with Likau of Drip. I will tell him, Mr. President, I've bashed you a lot on social media. I'm one of the people who's like, Cyril must go, he must step down, him and his family. But please understand that this is the virtual Mkhukhu and you're free. There are a lot of people that support you. There are a lot of people that admire you. They admire you and your family. So please feel free to talk. That's how it's done. And then I'll have to step back. I wanted to debate Andile Mzilitama. I didn't. I gave him the platform. I said when he comes back, I'll do so. Eusebius Makaiser. We had some disagreements here and there, especially about homosexuality, about some of his views around politics. Again, I've had to learn that there's a culture there that I have to respect. It's what it is. On my platforms, I'm going to try and go harder. The other important thing is, guys, please lower your expectations. I am just a gent. Some of you didn't know that I exist last year. I'm just a guy. I've got a small anyana brain. I'm trying to build a certain brand, trying to accumulate some resources for myself, my family, my circles. But I'm also learning. There are things that you may not like. There are things that you'll love. But please allow me and understand that I'm also my own man. So I will be biased, of course. If you guys have issues with me being biased, you can suggest, Pen, if he comes back, please ask him these questions. We know that you like this guy, but we don't. So please ask him these questions. I'm like, sure, I can respect that. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. When you bash me, luckily I have the intellect and the maturity to transcend these things. But with some of your other personalities, if you attack them, you will lose them and they won't listen to you anymore. And you lose out on a very important opportunity to build and grow and learn from them. And also, like me, to hack their minds and get them to start seeing things from your perspective and to benefit people that you care about. That's how we win. I want to create a smarter nation. Penal is God. Penalism is the answer. I will try my best to keep serving, to keep educating. I want to start doing more work on the ground. I know I've done a lot of charity work. I hate charity, by the way. I think it kills the mindsets of the beneficiaries. But I want to do upliftment and empowerment work on the ground. And I'm hoping more of you will reach out to me for that. I want to find ambassadors out there who are living in townships, specifically here in Johannesburg, until I can have the money to travel the rest of the country. I want us to plant trees, fruit trees in your neighborhood that you will be responsible for. And then you must give us updates. How are the trees doing? We've just picked some fruit. Thank you. We're now growing our own food. I want some of you guys to put your hands up and set up community gardens and say, Pen, we just need shovels. We just need picks. We just need forks. Please come through. We want to show you our community garden. We want to give you some cabbage and spinach. We want you to speak about and post pictures of and videos of our community garden so that more community members can come through and volunteer and help us expand or give us certain land. We want you to come through and help our sports teams, our local teams. You know, we need a kit. We need soccer balls. We need you to just speak to our community so we can set up a stockfile so that we can do for self. We don't need your money. Just please can you tell people of Lekasi to please join this WhatsApp group on this number, and then we can fundraise with ama 5 rand, ama 10 rand, so that we can get a kit, get soccer balls, make sure that we buy poles, whatever. Let us solve our own problems. The AfriForum calls it self-doen, doing for yourself. Ernst van Sale said the Nguni word is zenzele, do for yourself, and is correct. In Korea, the Kim family came up with juche, which is also being able to do for self. The Black Panthers in America were very much about self-determination, and Ubantu Bigo's black community programs were about self-sustaining, doing for yourself. I think we're at that point, and I want to empower and employ as many of you as possible to do for self. Understand that a lot of people on the ground are not strong. They're not leaders, but I know you are. For the fact that you listen to me and you follow me and you have the intellect and the intelligence to fuck with my shit, I know that you're a leader, and I implore you to put your hand up and say, I will lead. I will set up the WhatsApp group. I will find land in my community and start the garden. I will reach out to Penn and see if we can do work. I will fundraise. I will do that. And then I will find like-minded people to work with us. And I will speak to the Pakistani spaza shop owners, the Somalian Ethiopian spaza shop owners. I'll speak to Obaba that own the funeral parlors and the butcheries and the bakeries and the supermarkets to say, guys, please give back to the community. We need to work together to make our community better, our town, city better, and our nation better. It starts with you. I believe in you so much, more than you believe in yourself, but one day we will get it right. We will get it right. Pin you all the black pen. Have a blessed day, and I'll chat to you guys soon. Cheers.